everyone who's logged in or downloaded this video. It's fantastic to be here. My name is Jeff Gilmour and I'm from the Association of Residential Communities. We've got a panel together, three of us. We've got Jaime-Lee and Louise, who are going to introduce themselves in a minute themselves and briefly talk about what we're going to be discussing during this video. And it's a wonderful opportunity to connect with you all. So Lou, let's go to you.
So good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. My name's Louise Martin. I'm the COO of Estate Living, and I work with residential communities from three different perspectives: residents and homeowners living within communities, or individuals looking to invest, estate management, what are their needs, and then across to property developers and what types of communities are being delivered and developed at the moment, and some of the issues that they might face with that delivery, especially at this time now during our lockdown. And thank you so much, Jeff, for inviting us to participate with you in this webinar. And we really hope that we'll be able to share some interesting information around community living spaces and help people make the best decisions for them.
My name is Jaime-Lee Gardner. I'm the founder and group CEO of Estate Living. And I really decided to get into the estate living environments and community living environments way back when because of this inherent opportunity and need for us all to connect as a tribe. And what that can do for a growing environment and for a country as a whole. And the estate environments allow us to do that. So it's been a very interesting journey to see how things have grown and moved throughout the years, and especially now through some very challenging and very different ways of doing things, and really just trying to establish what the new norm is. My roles have always been looking at the various communication channels and how they are utilized best by different types of individuals. I also look at the service providers to the industry and how their services, their skills, their expertise can help the communities at large grow. And I'm looking forward to this little mini series of ours and how we can take a look at the community as a whole and effectively all learn and grow through these experiences, and hopefully just open up a little bit more of a conversation to drive educational and growth for everyone.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So what should we talk about first?
Well, I think we should really just define what the different types of community schemes are. There's so many words thrown around: constitution, MOI, life right, this and that. I think it does get a little bit confusing, especially if you're looking to purchase for the first time. So maybe, Jeff, you could assist us with defining what those specific schemes are and how they affect individuals looking to purchase.
Yeah, cool. And then maybe straight after that, Jamie, I'd like to hear a little bit from you about how things have changed in the industry. Obviously being at the forefront of communications and publications and the annual journal that you do. Maybe come in afterwards just to talk about how things have changed. But, it's an important question, Lou, and we've got to keep reminding ourselves of who we are. Many years back, people didn't even regard us as an industry. And we are an industry because within every community scheme, and I use the word scheme because it's any scheme, and those schemes could be free title boutique estates, they could be golf estates, equestrian estates, lifestyle estates, retirement estates, marina estates, beach resorts, and the list goes on and on. Those estates are generally run by a homeowners association if it's a free title development, and a body corporate if it's a sectional title development. Of course, we also have a common law association, which is specific to the Western Cape in the main, and KwaZulu-Natal, where you still have a homeowners association, but they're not a non-profit company in the true sense of the of the word. And it is those homeowners associations who are regarded as a company, and therefore we are a very lucrative industry. You'll know that, and statistics do change, and they vary depending on who's doing the analysis, but we don't have great data in our industry until recently. But we estimate, between 4 and 6 million people living inside of a community, with assets under management of about $1 trillion, just over R1 trillion, which is a third of the property value in the country, and an annual budget of about 800 billion. So it is a very, very big industry. And what fascinates me, and I know fascinates you because I read all of your articles that you publish, refers to the fact that very often when people buy into a community, they buy in for one reason, and that is security. But very quickly that need goes, and so many other needs of ours. Yeah. So in a nutshell, that's what the residential community industry is.
And I think just to add to that as well, and I'd love if Louise could just break down each one of those sectors. We work with so many of the what you can call the siloed industries of communities in the estate environment, and it's been phenomenal, like we were saying, how these environments have changed over the years. Because of advances in technology, an ability to really tap into individuals' needs and develop around those specific needs and smaller types of communities within our larger community as well. To be honest, and it's all focused around service delivery. And I'll go into a little bit more around the technologies and that. But Lou, I know that you've done extensive articles and research around the breakdown of these modular communities over the last while, because we have created a lot of content around that. Would you maybe like to just go into the definition? For one, as an example, I know there's been a lot of questions around the differences and pros and cons around sectional title versus life rights within a retirement community, as an example. Maybe let's get a little bit more specific around these siloed communities within the markets.
Absolutely. So, okay, this is my opinion. I feel quite passionate about this. So please, guys, you might have to stop me if I start rambling on. I think that what Jeff has mentioned earlier, that initially when you purchase into a residential community, security is very much the backbone of what that decision is. So who you are, your types of needs, the size of your family, the location of your community, all of those play a role, but security is always one of the number one driving factors. Service delivery then, as Jeff's mentioned, becomes more and more important. The question we have to ask ourselves is post-recession or during this recession, what is becoming more important into a community living space? I believe one of the serious risks to the community living environment where we stand now is non-payment of levies. And so becoming an estate needing to look for revenue drivers. So when you're purchasing into an estate that has a beautiful golf course, an amazing restaurant, you have to ask yourself, how are these facilities going to become sustainable in the long run? If for any chance, 25% of that community is not paying their levies. Are these facilities open to an outside audience? How are they going to sustain themselves when things don't go as well as you would want to? So that is a big part of it. So one wonders if the decision you're making is, yes, do I buy into a body corporate or freehold property? Am I looking for critical mass? Should there be a large number of properties within my estate? Is that maybe a safer investment than a small number of properties? Or does having a large number of properties then increase the risk of people not paying their levies? What are the plans for that estate? What is sustainable about it? What is their, what is their capital reserve budget looking like? How's their management structure? Do their trustees get on well? What is their portfolios? There's so many moving parts when making into a decision, when making to live into a community, that whether it's called an equestrian estate or a lifestyle estate, I wonder how important that really is. You know, okay, questions, all right, if I got horses, chances are I need an equestrian estate. But living, you know, how important are those different categories becoming? I understand the importance within a retirement community where you're looking at the specific scheme. So am I buying a life right model, which means I'm buying into a community to secure my life, as in the maintenance of the property and the food system or whatever it is that life type scheme has, or am I buying into a retirement community, and when I pass on, I want to hand over the profit of that purchase to my child. So that's a very different type of decision that you're making versus, do I buy a lifestyle estate, a security estate, this estate? I mean, this is my opinion, and I think that it's so important to understand the nature of what is community living. What are you actually buying? What type of ledger, you know, what are you buying into, and how
and it's
important
interesting.
is it?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I personally, I find that this information hasn't always been readily available. You know, when the developer is putting out the scheme, you know, and at the offset, and you're selling these wonderful environments, you know, and then you make that transition happens eventually through to the HOA. I find this information isn't necessarily always readily available. You really have to go and look for this type of content, you know, other than through our channels. You don't really necessarily have access to it. So before you make that decision, you really need to delve deep into these kinds of environments, which brings me back to I manage many of the sort of communication portfolios and marketing, communication, and technology-driven portfolios as well. So, you know, what type of information are these communities putting out, which I think is very important to explore.
And of course, you know, Lou mentioned the word lifestyle, security, equestrian.
Yeah.
You know, one has to always, just to change tack maybe a little bit and then included in it, is the fact that all estates are generally secure estates. It's the ultimate fundamental reason why people move in. There are people that move in because it's on a golf course, of course. Most people move in because they want security needs, and they choose a golf course because they play golf, or they choose an equestrian estate because they like to keep their horses and their ponies and whatever else they keep there. What people sometimes lose sight of is the fact that you're buying into an organized, and that word I love so much, an organized residential community. And that's what the people that run these estates are. They are community managers. And those community managers have a board of directors to whom they report. So people buying in or people living in an estate have the peace of mind that there is a properly elected board of directors or trustees in many cases that are governing the affairs of the association and are governed by certain rules and policies and procedures that in many cases have to include the owners. So while Lou is quite right in saying people, you know, don't necessarily identify those silos that she spoke about, the one thing that people should identify with is the fact that you're moving into a compliant, because that's the real issue, well-governed, organized community that is well managed, and every owner has the right to ask these questions and to get information regarding what the financial stability is. And I'm coming back to your opening statement, Lou, where you mentioned the fact that levies could become a problem, especially now. You know, this discussion we are having is on day 31, I think it is, of our lockdown, still in stage 5, hoping to go to stage 4 on Friday. So it's becoming even more important.
And Jeff, I think that the problem, the question about levies was existing prior to the lockdown starting. I think that it was already at that stage rearing its head, and I already see developments moving into administration, as they cannot choose a decision as the state, either whether it's due to financial reasons and folks aren't contributing to their levies, or whether the board itself are not able to reach a concise decision-making process. And I just want to pose this question to you, as you said, that it's about compliancy. So if I'm an outsider wanting to purchase into a community, and the only thing I see is how beautiful the lawns are and how lovely the facilities look, how do I know that that estate is compliant? And how do I find out? And I'm putting you in the hot seat here, Jeff.
Oh, no, you're so right. It's such a critical question. And we could run an entire discussion on this issue of compliance, specifically as it relates to the financial component. Because you see, there's two reasons. There's three reasons. The one reason behind people's apathy to pay levies is that they have a gripe, or they have a problem, or they have a concern, or they don't believe they've been treated properly, and the first thing they do is decide not to pay levies. That is in the case of a badly managed estate. Generally, it won't happen in a well-managed estate. The second reason is the economy. And people, want to put their kids into private schools, and they're prepared to sacrifice something. What's the first thing that gets is the levy. And the third reason is when the board, as you quite correctly said, they have nothing about it, and they live on this feeling or this notion that, it doesn't matter, we don't really have a cash flow problem. Budget is the budget. They can't sell their house until they pay up, and that's the wrong attitude to have. So it is true. Capital reserves are being exhausted. We're getting owners, Lou and Jamie, that are standing up at an AGM to say you've got 40 million in reserves, but you want to put through a 10% increase in your budget. Now, we will know that you have to separate your OPEX requirement to your CAPEX requirement, and reserves are there because they've been earmarked for special projects and refurbishment and replacement and repair. We know that, and therefore the normal operational expenses requires an increase because security goes up, petrol goes up, gardening goes up. But to the layman, the person they've just moved into an estate, to see or know that there's huge amounts of money in a reserve fund but you still want an increase, requires high levels of communication. And that's where you two do such a good job, because you'll grab onto a specific need, as you do, and you'll grab onto a topic, as you do, turn them into nice stories, which makes them nice and readable, as you do, and then put out a conversation piece on that particular issue. And I see now that maybe people don't want to read so much anymore, or use your digital platform. We'll also have a virtual platform that they can engage.
It has to be a good mix. It has to be a good mix, because we're not catering to the same type of individual across the board anymore. Our readers, our homeowners are becoming younger and younger and older. You have to facilitate for all. But I just want to make a note about capital reserves, budgets, and change. We're busy changing. The change is here. And we're talking about the different silos and sectors and different types of communities, security, all of them, and different kinds of lifestyle and compliance. But if we look at, estates have also become sort of key points or communities that are taking all the securities into consideration. So, food in one instance, there's a lot of work to be done around that. But if we look at things like power, water, so electricity and water, with the estates becoming, or with the private sector kind of taking on a role, we're looking at becoming almost like little mini municipalities. You know, we have to take into consideration the changes around this and the type of budgets that are also being put towards these kinds of changes. How is COVID going to affect how these communities and the budgets are being affected and planned for in this instance? You know, do we even know what to plan for yet? And I think in terms of that consideration, that's why these open conversations are so important. You know, it's so important to share sentiment, needs, values, and which all creates opportunity in this instance, you know. So I think, and look, and I think the estates they've made a lot of headway in terms of securing power and water, especially the Western Cape last year in terms of the drought and all of that. But it will be very interesting to see how management is making change when it comes to budgets and that. Which brings me to another question. Jeff, our managers, have you seen what kind of, or how they are moving towards achieving or promoting harmony, unity, or kind of what's happening in the estates at the moment where you can see the people actually coming together that you can see?
So I assume your question is not specific to if that's happening because of what you're going through now, but it's a general comment around the amount of effort that community managers, estate managers, CEO place on this notion of building harmony in the community. Because traditionally, Jamie, that's been done through a kind of project basis or on a project basis, not at a strategic level. So they will have let me say it like it is, an Easter bunny hunt once a year, and they'll have a Father Christmas coming for the kids once a year. But it's been very event-based, project-based. I don't believe that I have seen for a long time a budget that's been put forward that includes a line item on internal public relations. Because let's face it, our owners are becoming more aware, they're becoming a hell of a lot more educated in terms of their rights. So it's not only building harmony in terms of having a drink around a braai in a park, it's building harmony to create an understanding that people should live and let live, that people should get on with their neighbors, because their neighbors are so important when they go on holiday. And you won't be shocked because you know. But I sometimes have to remind myself of the shocking reality of how many neighbors hate each other inside a residential estate.
And outside.
Outside it's just, you probably don't even know them if you're outside. But even so outside, because their dog barks all night. Or they built the wall too high, or they've got a generator, or whatever the case may be. So I think there's going to be a strong movement forward, and it's going to rely on people like us, the three of us and others, to build in a very strong focus on education, awareness, coaching, mentoring, and it starts with the kids, and I'm talking at all levels. Do our estates do surveys? Do they know the demographics of their estate? Do they know in what age brackets they fall so that they can gear their harmony building efforts to meet the needs? I mean, you're quite right. I can't send my son an email. He hardly reads it. I send him a Facebook post or Twitter or Instagram, and boy, gone viral within 5 minutes, And it's
I think that the easiest route to market right now for every single community is to take a look at their community apps, their community portals, and really drill down into the fundamentals of what that portal does for you, what it can do for you, and actually, and now I think more than ever, put out those little training modules on how to use your portal best. It's not just for the delivery of your levies and statements, or your access control. You can do so much more with the power of having a communication in every single person's hand. Fundamentally, that is the one place that every single person is engaging in communication. It's in the palm of your hand. You know, whether you're a 13-year-old or whether you're one of the parents or a golfer. Whatever.
No, you can say it. Whether old guy like
one of us,
like you, Jeff.
So just to throw a spanner in the works here, so actually just two parts. So one, we've been doing quite a bit of research. I've been putting some content together to see what's happening now that we're in lockdown. So how are communities maintaining their spirit? And there's this amazing thing that's actually been going on. And if you read Estate Living, in May, you'll see what that is. But so what's happened is there's been this natural drive among certain homeowners, and it's not for everyone. So not everybody's going to be a champion of their community, and that's absolutely okay. But what we've noticed is like the local yoga sort of champion of the community is put her yoga videos online, and now everyone's doing yoga in their lounge in the morning. At Danefern, there was an entire drive for the security guards, where some of the homeowners were getting together and getting food parcels and all of this type of thing. And this wasn't instigated necessarily by management, but it was facilitated through their technology for management, being fiber ready, etc. What I find quite interesting, and I know where you're going on the communication, but originally when the lockdown started, it was a great opportunity to see what systems are working and what's not. And what I picked up, and please, I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong here. What I picked up is that there was an instant insecurity amongst homeowners' sentiment around the security of their estate, because of the reduced number of staffed solutions to their guarding. And some communities still directly correlate the number of physical bodies on the estates securing it as being more safe than technology. And I don't know whether it's because I've heard many technology presentations by the ARC business partners around virtual control rooms and all the types of software solutions. So I don't know how many estates actually have taken on those particular products. Maybe there were cost reasons or whatever their reasons were. But I did notice this kind of instant nervousness that came. And so again, technology plays a role, but there is also a lot of education that needs to happen around technology, because how do you tell somebody who's 65 years old, and I'm so sorry to use this reference, Jeff,
It's fine. I can take it.
Just not 65.
Nearly.
I'm going to find that our series has come to a grinding halt because...
leave it.
So how do we educate people? Or not, education is not the right word, but how do we build confidence in digital solutions?
And inspire people. I think inspire people into the digital solutions is maybe a better word than education.
Yeah, because... how do I know that camera is operating? How do I know that there's someone in the control room watching that camera? How do I know that my system that I've bought into the estate, I paid 15-20% more to live in this community based on security, and now the security guys aren't there? So what now? Have you noticed that, Jeff? I mean,
big time. On the 15th of March, the technology platform we're using to run this meeting, this chat, had 10 million users worldwide. They've got 300 million on the 15th of April.
It's amazing. Incredible.
From 10 million users to 300 million users.
Yeah, no, incredible. I can believe it. I can believe it.
So what's come up for us in respect of other things or other items or other topics that we should discuss going forward, that our members and residents and potential residents and estate managers and directors, having listened to this chat with the three of us, keeping in mind that together we've probably got 50, 60, 70 years of experience, even though we might all look young. You know, it's all we've really done.
Thanks, Jeff.
What name, Lou, maybe you or Jamie, name 2 or 3 items or topics that we could discuss going forward. And then, of course, let's ask our members also what they would like to include.
Yeah, I think, this series of ours is, I think, are going to be going forward very much a collaborative exercise where we can really bring to light what the communities are interested in and taking apart.
Yeah.
For me, my address, also where my interest lies, new technologies, the new norm, reintegration, and I like to get a little woo-woo, sometimes people say, but looking after the self so that you can look after your family and your community as well. So those are topics that I think I would like to tackle on my side to integrate into the community, but I'm sure there are many others.
I love it.
Yeah, I think also what's important is we've mentioned trustees. So let's do a little bit of ABC for a trustee. You're thinking of becoming a trustee of your estate. What does that actually mean?
It's a great idea.
What are your fiducial responsibilities?
Okay.
How do you get out quickly if you have to? Don't make
No, don't go there.
An escape plan. I'm joking. And how do you keep the greater community's benefit front of mind when we are all naturally wanting to protect ourselves and our families? So the difference, and I think as you mentioned, Jamie, you spoke about it just being the one. I kind of, it's maybe like that, but like sort of based on rules. How do you become the greater community value? Those are the kind of things that I thought were quite interesting.
Beautiful.
Jeff, how are you feeling? Are you anything else you'd like to add to the pot?
No, I think just we should close off by maybe sharing our email addresses, Lou and Jamie. Let's share our email addresses. I'm not sure whether they've come up in text form anywhere in this recording, but if not, let's maybe just share them quickly in case people want to contact us, and then we will continue the series. This is such an interesting discussion.
So just a note for everyone, we will the series will be produced and then distributed across all of the channels, so you'll be able to find it on the ARC website, which is hoasupport.co.za, as well as on ARC's social media, so Facebook, on Estate Living's website, which is estate-living.co.za, on our Facebook, on our LinkedIn as well. And through all of those channels, of course on the relative YouTube channels as well. On all of those channels, you'll have an opportunity there to pose your questions directly onto as a part of this series, in the comments box, or you could email us. And then what we will do is we will structure our next conversation around those, but based on these topics that we've identified. So I'm Jamie at estate-living.co.za and Louise at estate-living.co.za, and then Jeff is Jeff, Jeff at hoasupport.co.za.
Thank you so much, guys, and thank you for all of us that's joined us. So this webinar or this discussion group will be posted every Thursday. We plan on unpacking rules and the relevancy of rules. Please send us your questions. Jamie's mentioned that the addresses, and you'll also see it at the end of this video. And we look forward to next week. And thank you again to everyone. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Jamie.